Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another session of Archeo Gaming Live featuring Sasa's gamers Kate Minetti and Alexander Vanderwalle. Really quick, let's go over what is SASA. SASA stands for Save Ancient Studies Alliance. It's our mission to reverse the current downward trend in the study of the ancient world by engaging the public and bringing together students and scholars to share their passion for the study of the ancient world in order to inspire a vast new generation of students. We do this by hosting a lot of different kinds of live events, doing research on the downward trend in ancient studies. We have an open access database where you can search resources in ancient studies and much more. Where can you find SASA? Search for Save Ancient Studies Alliance, and on any of these platforms, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, and now TikTok. SASA's live events protocol. Please be kind and respectful. Listen and ask thoughtful questions throughout the event. Please be patient with technology and those administering it. SASA live events are streamed on Twitch, and recordings will be posted on SASA's YouTube channel shortly after the event. There are spoilers during our Archeo Gaming events, but of course, as always, have fun. Don't forget to subscribe to SASA on Twitch. If you enjoy our live events, such as Archeo Gaming, book clubs, and reading groups, please consider becoming a supporter with a recurring donation. You can do this for as little as $3 a month, and you can help save ancient studies. Thank you for joining us.
I am everywhere. I am on every single in every single window on Twitch. But that being said, let me check if we are audible. Okay, yes, we are. That was my voice coming back to me from my other screen. So welcome everyone. Good morning. It is time for Coffee and Conquest. And today we have Dr. Joshua Jeffers from University of Pennsylvania and the Penn Museum. With us, finally someone who knows what we are doing and who can talk about the Assyrians and the language, which is the part that unfortunately both me and Briana, who will join us, are sort of missing. So first of all, thank you for agreeing to join us at this unholy hour in the morning.
My pleasure.
And second, please feel free to introduce yourself, tell us what you do, what your research interests are, and also if you are a gamer, and if you are not, what do you expect from this game, or what do you know about this game?
Well, I'm the lecturer of Akkadian and Biblical Hebrew at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm one of those people that I got my PhD at Penn, so I'm an alumnus of Penn. I then joined Grant Frame's project on the royal inscriptions as a postdoc for several years afterwards, because getting a job in our field is quite difficult.
Yeah.
And then,
yes.
Of course, yeah. And then with all the language professors retiring at Penn, they needed someone to teach language. So I teach, the Akkadian and Biblical Hebrew side, while they're looking for, an Assyriologist to fill an open position. So that's kind of been my trajectory. Gaming wise, what can I say? I'm a kid from the late 80s and early 90s. I grew up with the original Nintendo and Super Nintendo.
Yes.
But oddly enough, in my graduate studies and in college years, I kind of dropped off from the gaming. Just because high school, things of that nature. Yeah, I used to game I think it all came down to my Xbox One broke one time,
True master
and I
of
just
the
never had the
arts.
money to replace it. So that's
Your
kind
heart
of
sing for
it
blood.
was the end of my
Come
gaming
then.
history because I just kind of let it go from there.
Um, but well, it's good. It's good to see that we are from more or less the same generation. I'm also a child of the late '80s.
Master of all.
Never had a console
Take
in
this
my
route.
life. I've always been a PC player. But
Universal
before
king.
being a player, I was a spectator because friends who had
Warriors,
games
heed a serious call.
showed me.
Yeah.
But how were you convinced to come and play this game? And have you heard about this game? Because it is, well, they had Eric Klein as as their consultant for Bronze Age collapse.
Right, he
games.
wrote the book, 1177, The Fall of Civilization, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want me?
Exactly,
Well,
exactly.
tough.
And I think there is a new one that is like after 1177,
We must stand
which is
together.
like the sequel, like how civilization
Enough with
recovers,
your
something of the
pestering.
sort. Let me check. I would hate to. Yeah, there we go. After
Yeah, he has
1177
two
BC. Yeah, the survival of civilization.
Right.
Nothing is going to survive after we're
The
done playing this
finest
game.
hour.
Anyway, this is
No,
our.
I haven't heard of this game.
Bright
And
ideas
I did this
for
because Jacob
no
asked me,
problem.
right? Jacob was in several of my Acadian classes, and Jacob could be very convincing if he wants to be.
Definitely, definitely. So, well, this is now the time to show you what we have been doing, or rather, what we've been destroying, which it happens. So, the original concept of the game was mostly Egypt-centric because it was let's make Ramesses III the hero, as he would have wanted. And then with this new, originally this was supposed to be a DLC, but then it was released as like a free, like second iteration of the game for everyone who had the original. They expanded the map
I am
immensely,
destined
and
to
we finally
rule.
have Mesopotamian factions with which we can play. So we chose naturally Hani-Galbat to try and start a new Assyrian Empire. So we have a king who is devout of Ninurta. Ninurta is in a name. And we've also been renaming all of our kids with good old Assyrian names because the naming system here can be a little, questionable.
Right.
But I'm going to let our fearless leader and person who's using the mouse explain to you what we've been doing, what is going on, and what is our plan for today. Because you might not believe it, but we have plans.
Fantastic.
Fast and strong. Calm and steady. Welcome to my court. My ward is law here.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know that the Edna ever really survived after the early dynastic material. Yeah.
And we also have a family
Listen.
tree system with which old Total War players
destined
are
to
very
rule.
affectionate, to which old Total War players are very affectionate because
Burning desire.
in Bronze Age, fashion, and probably later fashion, you can send
Reverse
your
this
kids
area.
out to get married,
The
or you can marry
battlefield
people
awaits.
into your family. So basically, making kids is having political
Sound battle balls.
pawns, which on the one hand, yikes, but on
Siege
the
crews,
other,
status
it sort of works. And there's an adoption system too, so we actually became king of the universe by being adopted into the old Assyrian family tree.
Wow. Okay.
The future
Interesting.
belongs to
It's a lot.
us.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Fascinating.
mostly there are like two parts to it. There is you need to, sort of administer the kingdom or the empire and make sure that everything runs smoothly. And then there is the more tactical battlefield stuff that needs to
Right.
happen.
Right.
And you will see that some of the units that we have are, well, let's just say very entertaining, but historically, maybe not. There's a lot of cavalry.
Okay. Do you guys have chariotry?
Duty calls.
Right. Right. Oh, fascinating. Okay. Well, you have to keep your user base happy, so we understand that, right?
Right. I mean, are we going to complain about the nice horses? Absolutely not. But
Exactly.
but we are going to talk about them. Right? We're going to point out that's like
Yeah.
they're supposed to be there. But it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of. It looks like the interface looks overwhelming, but then once you understand where everything is, it's pretty simple.
Right ideas for dull
It's mostly a lot of
problems.
jumping around. So I would, since I know basically nothing about this part of history, who is our faction leader? What do we know about him? What inscriptions did he leave? Did he leave inscriptions? Do we know about the family? Do we know about what he did? Since he's still alive, which is a miracle.
What so at what point in time are we here? I mean, are we kind of focusing on the latter half of the Bronze Age? Okay, so this will be Tukulti Ninurta the First, post Tukulti Ninurta the First. Right. I mean, his reign ends right after 1200, so
True master of the arts.
Oh wow.
Master of all.
but then before
must go.
Tiglath-Pileser the First, because Tiglath-Pileser the First is around 1114. It's actually this period where we don't have a lot of textual material for the Middle Assyrian Kingdom. It's this kind of what people call maybe a period of small decline or whatnot.
Just go away.
I don't necessarily think it's that strong of a statement.
I am
We just don't have
destined to
textual
rule.
documentation. That does not necessarily mean a period of
battlefield
too much
awaits.
weakness. It just means that we don't have textual attestations.
Your heartless cause.
In
revolts
Mesopotamia, so much of our textual record comes from things attached to building programs, like royal inscriptions and whatnot were often written because they're renovating
fantastic display of
buildings.
bravery.
And that gives them then a reason to write the historical
future
content
belongs to
on an
us.
inscription as part of their building project so they can lay the foundation inscriptions. And
Everybody
this
has
is one of
their
those
duty.
interesting things about through all of Assyrian history in general, even the Neo-Assyrian period. If they're not building something, we don't have a lot of textual information because they're not writing texts. These long analytic accounts that we're used to from Assyria. So at the end of Sennacherib's kingdom or reign, for example, he's finished most of his major building projects. So we don't have a lot for his last 7, 8, 9 years as king, where we have a ton of information, from Sennacherib, the beginning, the 3/4 of his reign. So this is one of those periods. the most we have are the economic documents that
Remember, man, fight smart and stay
are
focused.
kind of telling us a little bit about what the temple is doing, the archival records there. So you've chosen, I guess, what, Ninurta Apil Akor? Okay. Yeah, he is an interesting king. You know, Ashur-uballit is kind of the main king of the Middle Assyrian kingdom that
Soon they'll
you know,
weep for their mothers.
dominates the region and creates Assyria as an independent entity from the Mitanni, you know, this collapsing state of Mitanni. And then it's Adad-nirari, Shalmaneser, and then of course Tukulti-Ninurta that are the actors that pacify Hanigalbat, which is simply the term that they use for, you know, the kind of Habor region between the Tigris and Euphrates. But what a lot of people don't know is Ninurta Apil Akor is actually a usurper to the throne.
Drive us onwards.
Oh, so he's not. I mean, usurper in the sense that he's part of the royal family, but not directly line, or someone else that has no relation to the royal
Exactly.
is
family.
under attack.
He is not directly a descendant of Ashur-uballit.
Step by step.
You know, Tukulti-Ninurta's 3 sons kind of ruled in quick succession, and then he overthrew the sons. But he is one of the sons of. Have you guys talked with people about the Shar Hanigalbat, the king of the land of Hanigalbat, the Sharmat Hanigalbat? Yeah. Okay.
Just a tiny bit.
I find it's an interesting feature. What happens when they're trying to pacify this land, Hanigalbat? They start with using the old Mitanni practices of creating these vassal states, right? I mean, you were talking about this vassal system in the game, and so Adad-nirari, he tries to keep everybody under a vassal system, but he is constantly having to put down revolts in the region. And then Shalmaneser comes along, his son and successor, and the same thing happens. These old Mitanni confederations, they just keep revolting. You know, the king of Washukani just keeps revolting against the Syrian presence. And so it's in the time of Shalmaneser that they start to then get rid of this vassal structure and to turn this region into under direct provincial control, dividing the territory up into manageable pieces under Abel Pakute, which is a provincial district. And so they start chopping up the region to create provincial districts that is under the direct governance of an Assyrian governor, so that they have then direct administrative control. And then to do this, they start plopping palaces throughout the region that would function as administrative palaces, but residences that the king and the viziers can visit as you know, they're trying to manage the kingdom. And then to get back to my main point, one of the interesting things is during the reign of Tukulti-Ninurta, he then creates a grand vizier, Sukul-Rabiu, to administer the entire region of this old Hanigalbat territory, where this Sukul-Rabiu is the governor of the entire collected entity, only under the king himself. And so, as an interesting way of dealing with this, they call this great vizier, Sukul-Rabiu, they call him Sharmat Hanigalbat, the king of Hanigalbat. So it's an interesting kind of idea where they're using this old term, this king of Hanigalbat, as a play against the old Mitanni kings, but he actually functions just as the grand vizier under the Assyrian king. And so with Tukulti-Ninurta I, you know, that he creates this position, and these positions of Grand Vizier are hereditary. They pass from father to son for the most part. And it turns out Ninurta Apil Akor, the usurper, is actually of the line of this Grand Viziers. So then he overthrows Tukulti-Ninurta I's sons, And in an odd
I shall
way,
bring
the
a new
line
era
of the
to the
Shar
whole world.
Mat Hanigalbot then becomes Shar Mat Assyria.
Your hearts sing
But of
for
course,
blood.
you know, the
Come
Sharmat
then.
Hanigalbot, these are of the royal
them.
line. They're just
Feed
not the
them.
direct descendants of
Train
Ashurbanipal,
them.
but they are a part of the royal line. So it's not like
Replenish the regiments.
it's a complete usurper with a complete stranger, like what you have with the Kassites coming in,
I seek
or
comrades
something
with
of,
vision.
of that nature.
I shall
It's
bring
one of
a
those
new
things that
era
when
to the
Tiglath-Pileser
whole
I, when he ultimately writes some of
Glory
his
to
royal
Assyria.
inscriptions, you know, in the period 1114
For
to
I am their
1076, in his genealogy, Tiglath-Pileser legitimizes his reign by tracing his genealogy back as far as he can go with it, and he stops at Ninurta Alpa Acor.
Wide awake.
So he purposely traces his genealogy back through all the Middle Assyrian kings, but then stopping at Ninurta Alpa Acor. So it's one of those fun things there.
So he stops at like, well, this is the great ancestor because he took the power, but we're not
Right,
going to mention the
right.
fact that he's not directly related to the king before.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Conveniently.
Of course. Everything's always convenient at this time.
I mean, yes.
I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. So now when you guys are playing, this Hanigalbot is actually you as Assyria.
I shall bring a new era to the whole world.
Okay.
Just go away.
You mean way back in the old or the old Assyrian period then? Oh, okay.
Ours is the glory. I shall bring a new era to the whole world.
Sounds important.
I shall bring a new era to the whole world. Bolster the ranks.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
Universal king without
So you
me.
guys have already taken Babylonia then, I see. Are you playing against other people or just against the game? Okay.
But you can play battles against other people.
Okay.
No, these are all like like AI factions. They have, you can decide how aggressive the others can be when you start the campaign. You can decide, how much they move around. It depends on what kind of our boy got.
Okay.
with dreadlocks.
No, I'm not an expert on Urartian art. I just do know that Urartu isn't called Urartu in this period. It'll be Uruarti. Uruarti. Yeah.
But maybe
Uruarti.
speaking of rating people's clothes, we can show you all of our generals and what they are wearing, including our king. So you can see like what kind of people we are dealing with, because our king is the only one who's wearing
King of the universe,
decent
at last.
clothes. And then everyone else, we had to give them,
Master of
armor
all.
and everything else. But
Besiege
no,
those weaklings.
no one is wearing
They cannot escape.
extremely good-looking things. I have to say. There you go. Because that's our king.
No, I think because Tiglath-Pileser the First, we have rock inscriptions at the head of the Tigris, where we actually have an image of him on a rock inscription,
Fast and strong.
where his image is by his inscription, and I think he has a very similar to hat. The question is, does it have that little tip on the very
master
top
of the arts.
that becomes very normal for Assyria? I can't remember if his hat has that.
Let's see.
Smite
Which
them to
Tiglath-Pileser
smithereens.
is this one?
Oh, the first.
Okay, let's see.
Which would be the 1114 to 1076, the Middle Assyrian one.
All right, see if I can find an image that is not AI generated. Which,
Honor and
good luck.
glory.
Good luck
Yeah.
with that. Right?
We set off now.
I mean, yes, thank you. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think this is the rock
Well,
relief.
there's someone
Okay,
else.
so this photo has all of 8 bits, so it would be difficult. It's
It's hard to find a good photo online.
Dreams
Yeah.
are playing.
yeah, it's a sort of damage inscription.
I see
Here's the thing. I don't know if
comrades
it's.
with vision.
I don't know if I can see the tip of the crown because
Well,
it breaks in
and
the
the
rock.
swell.
Yeah.
But he has he has the beard, he has the biceps, he has long hair. So points
Well,
for
and
that.
certainly that's the Neo-Assyrian crown, right, with the little tip on top. That's very common for the Neo-Assyrian period. Yeah.
Yeah. I teach art history, and every time I show the reliefs of the lion hunt with the Assyrian king being the manliest man that ever manned, my students are suitably impressed. But they also point out that perhaps going to hunt with that thing on your head is not the ideal, it's not the best choice. Which, true. There is one where he's wearing like a diadem that's kind of like a bandit, like a hairband, which makes a little more sense.
I listen.
But then in the same one, he's also stabbing a lion with his bare hands.
Prepare
So,
for march.
Explore the region.
Right.
But the idea of the king has the tall crown.
True master
And
of the
unfortunately, our
arts.
generals, not even our heir, which we lost one in battle, very Assyrian of us to do so, they don't look as good. They are, that's our man. He's 16. He's already leading an army. Oh, excellent.
And he has the kind of like conical helmet.
With the
we have because we have
crest.
Neo-Assyrian examples. I think even in the Penn Museum, I think we might have an example of one of these it's a first millennium helmet, but it's an iron helmet that has that conical shape to it. So
Martial
Yeah.
prowess.
They did
I am destined to rule. The finest hour. Your hearts sing for blood? Come then.
I will not hold back.
I've done that. I'm playing
I
a
will
campaign
crush
as
you.
Ramesses III, and I downloaded a mod that gives more variety in terms of the generals, because otherwise they all look like the same man. It's like, I would like to see some variety. The Mesopotamian factions got the short end of the stick with that, because everyone, like, we've had generals fighting against their clones, basically. It's like,
okay, right.
but see, that's another one of our men with the royal headband, and that beard with like 3 prongs. Yeah. Yeah, man, these people are beating around anyways. You know, and the banners that the various factions have sometimes are, you know, they make sense. And sometimes we find them quite baffling. We
Bag of gold or bronze blade?
when we attack them, okay. Is it a thing holding a thing?
Submit to me.
Oh.
You are the pride of Asteria, warriors. Looking up, I see bright stars.
Boy, oh, it is.
Protector of Assyria.
Well, it's, you know, it's family. It's a family heritage. It's you know, it was great grandpa's
I will fight
vessel.
another day.
There you go. Right.
Your
the heirlooms
heartless
handed
cause
down.
revolts me.
Exactly. I mean, we do have those, right? Sometimes, well, sometimes it's not heirlooms. Sometimes it's stolen stuff. My research is on archaic
fight.
Sicily and on Egyptian
Yes.
objects in archaic Sicily.
Okay, yeah.
And there are a few 19th dynasty
I
shabtis.
seek strong warriors.
And those are not heirlooms. Those were
Are these the
stolen
finest?
from like the Theban necropolis and then sold
honor,
much later
discipline.
to the Sicilian market, which is fascinating. Also because these people don't know how these
We
shabtis
must
work.
stand together.
Because if your name is not on it,
Battlefield awaits.
Yeah.
it won't.
Surrender or
I mean, it's
die.
just like what Susa is going to do, you know, Elamites are going to do to Babylonia. You know, when they come in at the end of this period, you know, around
We've
1155-ish.
proved ourselves today.
So I guess this is still
destiny
after this point in time,
unfolds.
because you said 1180, right?
Yeah,
because
81.
Elam is going to come in
future
and
belongs to
loot
us.
Babylon and sack all of its cities at the end of the 12th century. And what they do as
I have
part of that
carried the
process,
burden of my
they
duty for a
loot
long
a
time.
lot of the objects from the city of Babylon
me?
and
Well,
Sippar
tough.
and the various cities they conquer. So like the
Just
Law Code of
go.
Hammurabi, the Manishtushu
Always
Stele, one of the old Akkadian kings from like 2200 BCE, all these kind of stone diorite
Engage the
objects. The Naram Sin Stele. I don't know if people familiar with the old Akkadian king Naram
Oh
Sin.
yeah.
has
Oh yes,
swords.
that I'm seeing. Yes. Also
Yeah.
the manliest man.
Yes,
Stir fear in
they
them.
find all of these objects where at Susa.
them
The
trapped.
French, during their excavations, find all these objects at Susa. It's because
Find someone
the
else.
Elamites came in, sacked a lot of these cities at the end of the 12th century, and carried off these big
The future
monumental
belongs
inscriptions.
to us.
And it's quite fascinating.
I know.
The Elamite
Bag of
king.
gold? Or
I can't
bronze
remember. Is it
blade?
like Sukhor Nanute
Sound
or something of that
battle
nature? He actually wrote his own personal inscription on these objects, saying, you know, I so and so,
friend
the
to my
Elamite
tribe.
king, you know, great king of Elam, attacked this
True
or attacked
master
this
of
city
the
and carried
arts.
off this object from X or Y city.
History.
So,
I will
you know,
unite.
the Law Code of
Bag of
Hammurabi
gold
and some of
or
these big
bronze blade?
diorite things, the Manishtushu obelisks, and the Naram Sin,
Hattie
they're
will
all
rise
found
again.
in Susa during the French excavations.
Would they be
They were
like
not found in situ.
would they be displayed
I
like in
fight
the royal
for
palace
well, a
since they
pleasant
are
surprise.
inscribed, or would they just inscribed and kept somewhere else?
I think they were actually, I mean, I don't know exactly what was done with them. I think they actually were put on display in the conquering city, like in Susa. I think there is a text talking about how someone was able to copy some laws from like the Hammurabi Stele or whatnot. I don't know if that was while it was in Susa or something else.
Let me stop you one second.
Oh, there
That
were
woman is
trophies.
42. Don't marry her.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, we need to make sure that our kid gets an age-appropriate book. Never mind. Please continue.
Son of
Sorry for
legacy.
stopping you. I saw that. I was like, no.
No, I don't know what is
Yeah.
relevant or not relevant to this whole process. This is all new to me, so this is quite interesting. A lot of this is fascinating because
I am fortunate to be on a
the
serious
water
good
table
side.
of Babylon is so high that we cannot actually excavate into the second millennium levels at the city of Babylon. So most of our textual information for the
I
Middle
do
Babylonian
remember
period
this.
and the Old Babylonian period come from all of the surrounding cities, Sippar, Borsippa,
The finest
Uruk,
hour.
all of these bigger cities,
You shall
because
not
we
influence
literally
me.
cannot excavate the capital of the central administrative part of the state, because we can't dig that far down because the water table is so high. So we have basically the Neo-Babylonian and the first millennium layers. So the Elamites, if I can say this, the Elamites did us a favor by extracting some of these items, because otherwise we would not have like the Law Code of
Song
Hammurabi,
and
one of our
verse.
great pieces of Old Babylonian
True master
royal
of the arts.
law code. So sometimes destruction in the ancient world is good for us as archaeologists and historians, even though it was not a good
Bag of
thing
gold or
back in
bronze
ancient
blade?
times.
Oh,
A
yeah,
lot of
no.
our cuneiform archives frankly get preserved because cities are being burned and the burning bakes the tablets and then they fall into destruction layers. Continuous inhabitation of a city means they're recycling tablets, destroying them, reusing them. And so when cities are continuously and peacefully occupied, sometimes we don't have a lot of good textual evidence for these periods.
Bright ideas
So
for
it's one of those things. History can be history and historiography can be cruel, I guess.
No, that's true. And it's I mean, there are examples. Well, the thing of the tablets is also like linear A, right? Linear A, linear B. It's like, yeah, they got cooked. And that's why we have them. And then everything got burned down, and that's why we have them. The looting is also like sometimes what saves us, right? Sometimes what gives us archaeologists the important stuff from back then. I also imagine that it's difficult to dig under Babylon, not just because of the waterbed, but also because troops in the area, American bases, political issues in there. It's unfortunately in a bad place for digging.
Yeah. For example, like at Nineveh, the great Neo-Assyrian capital of Nineveh, we have these wonderful palaces on the citadel of Kuyunjik. The North Palace of Ashurbanipal and the Southwest Palace of Sennacherib. And for the most part, we don't know what's under those because we do not want to actually, rip up, because archaeology is a destructive enterprise, right? We don't actually want to dig up and dismantle the great Neo-Assyrian palaces that we have. Because it's a destructive endeavor, and so a lot of effort is spent on restoring or reconstructing these palaces in situ, but that means we don't necessarily know what's underneath it. And of course, Nineveh is one of these cities. It's one of the core Assyrian cities for a very long time. Even in the Middle Assyrian period, Nineveh is one of the major cities, but we don't have Middle Assyrian layers for the city. This is what makes Ashur, the city of Ashur, so wonderful. Is Ashur, and it's next. Nineveh's next to Mosul, right? So there's actually houses, modern day houses, in the lower part of the city. So we can't excavate the lower town of the city. We're restricted to kind of the citadel where there were no houses, modern day houses built on it, because you can't really displace people in order to do archaeological digs. The city of Ashur is not a location, on the middle Tigris, was not a location that was permanently inhabited. And so we are able to excavate all of the layers of the city of Ashur. Because, it's, if you go to the Google Maps image you can actually see the outlines of all the structures that existed throughout the Old Assyrian, Middle Assyrian, and Neo-Assyrian periods, because they're so wonderfully visible on the topography from outer space. So the city of Asher is one of our better preserved and better excavated sites, because it doesn't have these problems that some of the other cities have of being modern day population centers, modern day housing on it, and things of that nature. Oh, and then you're talking about don't marry the older woman.
I won't give in.
This was actually
No offense, nothing against older women.
Of course not. Just, I'm sure you've talked about diplomatic marriages a lot for this period of the game. This actually became an important issue because Ashurbanipal, right after he had made Assyria a large enough power, he actually married his daughter to the Babylonian king, the son of one of the kings. And when that king died, there was a revolt in Babylon where that ruler was overthrown, and Ashurbanipal actually sent an army to invade Babylon and to sit the ruler he wanted on the Babylonian throne because of this diplomatic marriage situation.
Veteran of Hatti.
So diplomatic marriages were very important, but then could also cause headaches because of then the political fallout of uncontrollable events that would surround these kind of situations. I'm sure Jacob and you, as Egyptologists, would talk about the marriages between like the Mitanni and the Egyptians.
Right.
And the difficulties they would create. I mean, the alliances they would create, but the difficulties they would create.
Also that, right? Like,
Ashur cannot save you. Veteran of Hatti.
Almost.
Your warriors are wavering.
Yeah, but to which which begs the question: what the hell was the king thinking at that point? Like, yes, let's ask the king of the bulldwards from the elements. Yes, exactly. But let's ask like the king of like our enemies to send a prince to become Pharaoh. Ma'am, what? Ma'am. I need you to sit down, take several sips and think about it, right? Like, but on the other hand, how desperate do you have to be to resort to that, right?
Your warriors
And
have been
I also wonder, like, if someone in the court was like giving assurances that perhaps they could not.
Your warriors are wavering,
right? It's like, oh, this will put us at peace. No one will revolt.
You are
like,
losing
I wish I was like a fly on the wall in that moment. Because it must have been a tense moment, and then what happens, right? When the guy does not arrive, right? What iterations?
I've always wished that time travel could exist for these kind of reasons, so I could find out, so I could be that fly on the wall and see what happened in these kind of situations.
Yeah, no, it would be. I mean, it would be interesting. I also want. I mean, on the other hand, like, I do wonder, how much people were like, "Oh shit, we should intervene, but we can't if they send like a daughter somewhere else," and then things went wrong, like in Babylon, like in
the enemy
like the king
is
of
laying claim to your victory
How
point.
much do you? Like, how do you balance? Oh, this is my child but we can't start a war right now, right?
I think it all is about personal interest of the state, right? I mean,
it's the big question.
I mean, you guys in the game here were fairly aggressive with Babylon, from what I see. And throughout the Middle Assyrian period,
your warriors are wavering.
They're not terribly aggressive with each other.
You have lost a victory
There
point.
are frequent raids of one side kind of raiding the borderlands between these two states. So Assyria would raid, a little bit farther south. that whole land between the lower Zob and then the start of the Diyala region, but all of that area between that is kind of like the borderland between Assyria and Babylonia, and they kept fighting with each other to push the border back one way or the other. And ultimately, the Assyrians got the upper hand and pushed the border back from the lower Zob region to kind of the Diyala region, the northern part of Babylonia. But they never actually fought each other directly. It was these kind of border issues. And so Ashur-ubalit's move is really to keep
warriors are
favorable,
wavering.
a favorable dynasty on the throne of Babylon, to keep these kind of relations in that manner. This kind of, there are scuffles but no warfare.
Your warriors have been
Because Ashur-ubalit, Adad-nirari, Shalmaneser, they're all concerned with Hani-Galbat, frankly, right? Pacifying this region. Hani-Galbat really was the key for the Middle Assyrian kingdom to have power. Once they liberated themselves from the control of the Mitanni, because the one thing that the whole Habur region has is agricultural produce. And they, unlike the Babylonian south, where it's irrigation farming, off the canals and water control of the canals. And so Hani-Galbat was literally their meal ticket to power because of the resources it contained that allowed them to create and stabilize a kingdom for the first time, unlike what could not happen in the old Babylonian period with these small little kingdoms, Hammurabi's little kingdom, the Isin-Larsa period, their little kingdoms, Mari and all this kind of stuff. So it's the ability to provincialize and to organize the resources necessary to control this vast swath of territory that allowed the Assyrian kingdom to really become a stable entity in the Near East and expand from there. And so they didn't want to engage Babylon because they knew it was powerful. And they knew it was a threat until Tukulti-Ninurta. Tukulti-Ninurta, the Kassite king Karduniash IV,
Just go away.
he violates the treaty boundary they had with each other, where they had set the boundary, and so he violates his treaty. And Tukulti-Ninurta uses that as a pretense to then invade the south.
Classic. It's like, they are not respecting,
This
they're
whole
not
treaty
playing by the
thing.
rules.
No, exactly. And he blames them,
Your
right?
heartless cause revolts
He
me.
violated the oath of the gods, the brotherly treaty we had established, and so he
Battlefield
invades.
awaits.
And he makes
You
himself
shall
king
not
of Babylon
influence
for
me.
7 years. This isn't going to last, because you then fall into this post-Tukulti-Ninurta period where there's this weakening period.
Fantastic display
But
of
they
bravery.
do seem to lose control
What
of
will fate
Babylonia
bring?
after that period. So it's a short-lived controlling. But this is the period where Tukulti-Ninurta brings up a bunch of stuff from the south,
hearts
textual material,
sing for
particularly from
blood.
the south.
Come then.
So we'll get, the Tukulti-Ninurta epic, kind of mimicking these epic materials from the south, because Assyria doesn't really write literature. It's one of those things. Babylon and Babylonia are kind of the cultural centers that write these massive literary stories. Assyria doesn't
shall
do
bring a
this.
new
They do
era to the
military
whole
narrative,
world.
right? And they rehash that.
Oh yeah, they're
So
doing all about
you guys control all of Babylonia.
Well,
You're being more aggressive than the Assyrians were at this point in time.
Clearly, we are victorious.
I mean, we do like our conquest. Before this, we played a whole campaign with the Sea People, and we burned the world. It was great. It was fantastic.
True master of the arts.
Yeah.
I am destined to rule. Everybody has their duty.
Yeah.
Possibly killing your own brother, because, you know,
The
that's how
finest
families, I mean,
hour.
who amongst us, right?
It happens, right?
Right,
Yeah.
siblings. I mean, you know, I got none, but if I had, I would probably kill them in battle, you know. Or make them my vassals, who knows at this point.
I see you guys haven't gone all the way to the Euphrates yet.
We are being, we're also being like, our asses are being handed to us by the Elamites for now. They've been
Okay.
Glory to Assyria and its people, for I am their savior.
Okay.
Walls will not save them.
I know! The future belongs to us.
You mean the golden one that looks like an upside down cone? Okay.
You remind me of your
Fancy
predecessor,
vest.
not in a good way.
True master of the arts.
Yeah.
Enough
Not
with
the
your
Lamassu,
pester.
right? You're talking. The. Oh, okay. Yeah. I can't remember their name off the top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah. So what? What is, because I've seen battles. I've seen, you know, some of our garrisons being beaten. What is going on, like, in the big scheme of things? And do we have one of our kids on the battlefield yet? Because it's always important. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Mm-mm. Oh yeah. Mhm. Oh, Egyptian civil war has started. Oh yeah. Please, yes.
We have trained for this, brother.
And so
Yeah.
once we're like information, you can actually show off our units, so our guests can see all of our shiny warriors.
Yeah, it's one of these things, you know, like for Urartu, for example, you know, none of these mountainous peoples really highly organized, but it's then the mobilization and threat of Assyria that is almost like a prompting factor for these various surrounding entities to organize, to create some kind of political stability to resist the coalition that Assyria has created, you know, the vast empire. And so, you know, the first millennium Urartu is almost a response. Just like Elam is consolidating and becoming, you know, a more stable entity in the Middle Assyrian period, you know, it never really comes into conflict with Assyria itself. It always fights with Babylonia. But it's these kind of large territorial states that prompted even, you know, mountainous peoples to then organize into some kind of loose confederation, almost as a response to that, for defense or whatnot.
Ever enduring. Be wary through this grass, man.
With the rounded shields, with the Yep.
Fight with
Fantastic.
pride.
Do they have like the feather thing coming over the
Nothing
top
can stop us.
from the reliefs?
Yes.
The rain is ruining
Yep, the curl feather from the reliefs. Those are the higher elite trained soldiers. Yeah.
Primed for battle.
Victory beckons!
Fight smart and stay focused. That way.
He doesn't have to be, but he has a great royal chariot, so why not?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, right? Look at that. Look at them. God.
Chariots! The king of all!
My equipment is soaked through.
But we have experience with chariot warfare, and these are the guys with the vessel as their symbol.
Yeah.
Yes.
Put their eyes out.
Get the horses pulling! Fight with pride!
Oh yeah, it is. It is her. It's you know, we have the statue, although the bronze statue is probably Etruscan or made by some Etruscan someone. Okay, so made by someone
Noble warrior!
who knew the Etruscan metalwork techniques, right? We're not gonna make statements here. And then the kids were added like in the 1500s. But yeah, but the symbol of the she-wolf is, you know, is everywhere. Still like you go to Rome, you know, you look up, there's a she-wolf. One of the two soccer teams has, you know, the she-wolf as their symbol, and the other one has an eagle because we're never beating the allegations. They actually used to have an actual eagle flying over the stadium for the soccer games, and her name is Olympia, because you know the stadium is the Olimpico, so you know the works. And there was a weird scandal with the person who handled the birds. Don't look that up. It happened like what 2 months ago. That was some weird shit going on. So now they don't have a bird anymore, but they used to. But the other team doesn't have a she-wolf, so you know. But yeah, it's, you know, using objects as symbols, like actual objects as symbols, is yes, like yes, throw.
Drive us onwards!
Proceed.
Your hidden units stand revealed.
Guard the horses.
I actually had a question about cultural memory and language.
They appear like spirits!
Because for you, Josh, if that's okay. So you said that they took away, you know, the steel of Naram-Sin, the steel of with Hammurabi's laws and everything else. So first of all, would they have been able to read it, like to read the text, or like, and
Your
if so,
foes'
like
hidden
how many
units
people
stand
would have
revealed.
been able to read it? Like, was it like?
Well, certainly.
What's
yeah,
the linguistic
yeah.
situation?
I mean, it's always difficult to talk about who can read, especially cuneiform in the ancient world. You know, scholars, I think, have kind of settled on the fact that the higher literary stuff could only be read by specialists. You know, scribes were trained in it. We do think that there are a lot of individuals that were functionally trained in Akkadian. Like if you have a family with a business and want to write like economic receipts, they will have a very limited Akkadian but a limited ability to write signs for the purposes of keeping track of, you know, the transfer of goods for the family business, and have a base level of literacy for, you know, the functioning of your trading enterprises and whatnot. But certainly the literary forms of Akkadian that these inscriptions would have been written in, one would probably need to be a scribe or an elite of some kind that has a higher level than just functional Akkadian. So, you know, these things, would the Elamites have been able to read it? The elites would have been able to. You know, the Elamites used Akkadian as their written language up until, I think, this period, the Middle Assyrian period, where Elamite then starts to take over as their own indigenous written language. Now, I'm not a specialist in Elamite, so one would need to check that just to make sure. But, you know, Elam, I believe, used to use Akkadian as their written language until their own written Elamite form of the language took over. I think it's in this period as the kind of they're coalescing into a more organized state, right? Which makes sense then.
Tear through them!
So it's one of those things that they may or may not have been able to read a lot of these things, but that does not necessarily detract from the projection of power, of course, that these images have. This is a big debate about, what is the impact of the Assyrian royal reliefs in these palaces, or even the Assyrian stelae that will then be set up in the cities that are being conquered, by the Neo-Assyrian kings. The local population can't read these things,
But they can see.
One of your units
but they can
has
see the
completed
huge
their
image of the
ammunition.
king with this massive written text next to it. So it combines, it's the projection of power more than anything about the knowledge of the content of an inscription. It's the projection of, erudition and military authority and political control as a way to keep the populations, subservient and part of the kingdom. So with respect to memory, societies have long memories of these things. There's a very interesting text, the Marduk prophecy, that was written in Babylonia that traces the history of kind of the Babylonian state from the old Babylonian period to the end of the second millennium with the Isin II dynasty, with Nebuchadnezzar I, which will be around 1120-ish, so
The enemy
slightly after
general
this
has
period.
perished.
But what they do is this text puts Shulgi, the Ur-3 king, Shulgi, kind of the great king, this text purports to be a prophetic text that Shulgi writes down in the Ur-3 period, even though, of course, it was written at the end of the second millennium, where the Marduk statue talks about his journey he takes, going from Babylon to Hatti, and then coming back under his authority, then going to Ashur, and then coming back, and then going to Elam, and then coming back, and then celebrating the great king that brought him back from Elam. And what this is, it's a reflection of all the periods of Babylonian history where the Hittites sacked Babylon in 1595, according to the Middle Chronology, and then took the statue away, and then they retrieved it. And then the plundering of the Marduk statue by the Assyrian kings, right, with the Kultan-Ninurta, and then he comes back. And then by Elam plundering, like we already talked about earlier, these statues, taking the statue, and then Nebuchadnezzar I bringing that statue back. So this text purports to be a story about how the god Marduk, in the form of a statue, declared that he wants to go visit these other regions and was happy to be in Hatti and made Hatti prosper, and then goes to Assyria and then makes Assyria prosper, and then goes to Elam and is annoyed it's in Elam, and so he starts bringing devastation and everything, while he's away, because the god is away, until Nebuchadnezzar can bring the statue back. So it's fascinating that they know to write this narrative about the history of the statue, which of course was just taken in these historical periods. They've written a narrative of divine abandonment, and then it was the god Marduk who made these decisions to go to these locations and abandon his city. But wherever he went, he blessed those locations because
Apart
he's
from
the great
one.
god Marduk. So historical memory is very long.
This is very cool, and also to write a text like that, they would have had records of all of these movies, or like at least cultural memory, but probably like written records.
Great is Assyria and his
King lists, right?
Right.
All of Mesopotamian history is really the backbone of these things are the king lists that we have written down and preserved. Like Egyptian history, right? The king lists are the backbone of the mythology. And then one has to suffer through, well, what is the political ideology attached to the king list? Therefore, is it an accurate king list? What elements are put in or taken out?
from the king's list, right?
of gold?
Did we conveniently
Or
forgot?
bronze
Also, the
blade?
chat says, it's fine, it's a diplomatic trip. I totally wasn't kidnapped, right? Yeah, of course, right? It's the god, choosing where to go. It's a great way of coping, but also a great way of maintaining. Like the Egyptians would have never done anything like that. They would have just said, no, the god was always here, always been here. I don't know what you're talking
Really?
about.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, this
Yeah.
is
I
why
shall bring a new era to
foreign
the whole
invaders,
world.
like Cyrus the Great, when he sacks the city of
Battle
Babylon
positions.
in 539,
Stir fear in
his
them.
justification is that the god Marduk told me to do so, and is telling me to become
Make
king of
their homes
Babylon.
there too.
So this ideology about divine abandonment, where God chooses to leave a city or the god wants the city to be destroyed, is a very powerful political tool and ideological tool that can be used on both sides of the aisle. You yourself for indigenous justification, but also your enemies can use it as, well, your God told me to come conquer your city, and that's why I'm doing it. So
Right, what are you gonna say to your god? No, don't do that.
I am destined
No, the
to
Egyptians
rule.
would lend statues of gods of medicine and other things to their brother, their brothers, the kings in the Near East, and then take them back for reasons. And the other way around too, we have record of that too, of a goddess of medicine being sent from Tushrat of Mitanni to Amenhotep III,
finest
who
hour.
was fairly sick for his health. Right,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so
The
this
future
is the
belongs to
statue of the
us.
goddess who's traveling to Egypt to heal my brother, to bring in help, and then she will come back. It's like it's in the letter, and then she will come back. Right? Don't keep her. Just send her back as soon as you're done getting well. I guess getting better. But yeah, it's not something the Egyptians would rather they take in foreign gods and they become part of the pantheon. And also part of theophoric names, which is interesting because you start seeing someone called Bint Anat. A Reshak pops up here and there. So it's interesting, but they do not. Egypt is very, very, how do you say, endogamous, right? It takes everything very close. They don't give things out. They don't give friendship easily. They don't marry people out at all. They don't take it well when foreigners come in. I mean, who does? But they really don't take it well. They especially don't like the Persians, which is why when Alexander comes in and frees them from the Persians, they're like, yes, we're on board. This is we can work with this one, but not with the Persians, right? Because well, I mean, I'm sure that Alexander's
Smite
King
them
of the
to
Universe
smithereens.
shtick was more
someone else.
close to Egyptian
Your heartless
propaganda
cause
and
revolts
sensibility than whatever the Persians were doing. It's like there's difference there. Although not as much as Herodotus tells us, because Herodotus is taking the dramatic approach
We
to
won
what
a
the Persian
fair
kings
victory.
did.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but it's interesting that
So
instead, I
few
had
are
no
like
idea of
me.
the god Marduk,
I will inspect the
traveling
barracks, my
around
son.
and then coming back and say, just it was all my doing, up to Cyrus the Great. That's phenomenal.
The Babylonians would have these ceremonies where the god statues from all the
Smite
cities
them
would
to
gather.
smithereens.
There'd be processions of god statues, and the gods would go visit the various cities of Babylonia.
Bright ideas for dull
I think
problems.
the inauguration of a new king,
them
the gods
trapped.
would all come to Babylon. The statues would all come to Babylon to be a part of
King
the
of the
inauguration of a new
universe,
king
at
in the city of
last.
Babylon. So, yeah, god statues
crush
traveling.
you.
It's an interesting phenomenon where it's literally the god coming and visiting you.
A fight. Yes.
Do we know? Okay,
Walls will
practical
not save
question.
them.
Do we know if these were wooden statues that were easy, or gilded or gold statues that were easy to transport? Or are we talking about stone statues? What are we talking about?
They
Is
would
the
have been
travel
wood-
statue
Yeah,
not
we
the
have-
same as
we
the
have
gold statue?
texts. Yeah,
Okay.
we have texts that actually talk about the creation of these statues. Because it was
Engage the enemy.
the opening of the mouth ceremony. I know you have that in Egypt too, right? The opening of the mouth. Yeah.
Keep them trapped.
They would talk about the various items, materials
Duty
that would be
gods.
put into the statue, and one of those is a wooden core. because
Okay.
the wood has to come from a particular tree that has its roots go down to the underworld, and so it has this kind of divine nature because the roots of the tree stretch down to the Absu,
Surrender
and so it becomes this holy wood or sanctified wood that would be the core that was then overlaid with
Enough with your
gold
pestering.
and adorned with jewels. They put jewels on it,
We
and
set off
after the
now.
gold overlay, yeah.
So
But it
this is
would-
like
it'd be a wood core.
so this is the traveling version of the statue.
Dreams of
Yeah.
plenty.
Or is
I mean,
it? Yeah,
this is probably why we don't have any of these statues.
right. That was
If
my
they
next
were
question.
stone statues, one would presumably find examples somewhere if they were stone statues. But if they're wooden statues with metal overlay, then they were probably stripped for their metal, and then of course the wood doesn't survive. Yeah.
Right. Now this is cool, and also like the So would they have like specific forests with sacred trees? Would they have like do we know how the sourcing of this sacred wood work, or is it just like, oh, this tree has these characteristics, so we can make the statue from this? Do we
I think
know?
it's a particular kind of tree, but I don't know off the top of my head what that means then practically. I've never gone through to look into like practically, does that mean they would get the gold from a certain place or the trees from a certain place?
Another time.
Right.
Because it's very much about the ritual process of taking these materials that were already there and then sanctifying them in order to create the statues. So I haven't looked into it. That's a
Right.
really-
No, because
Face a serious power.
I was thinking about the process of finding an apis pool in Egypt. Like it needs to be, born in these particular, herds, and it needs to have these specific markings, and you
testament
can't
to Assyrian
fake them.
supremacy.
And which is weird that they specified that,
Master
because surely
of all.
someone did at one point, so they had to say, no one can fake, you can't paint the
Submit
cow
to me.
or the bull rather. It needs to be, it needs to be specifically that. I mean, at one point, right? If you don't have the right one and one
You are
has
the
just died,
pride of Assyria, warriors.
I mean,
Yeah.
what is a little paint, right? That's still a good bull. But no, but I was wondering. And I mean,
Wait.
the fact that like, no, go.
No, it's
Universal
it's one of those
king
really
without
interesting
blood.
things. People probably may know it if you ask it, but you always have to keep on your mind that in Mesopotamia, there is nothing.
The battlefield awaits.
They don't have anything natural resource-wise. They have to get everything from outside.
Fantastic display
All
of
metals have to come
bravery.
from the mountains to the north or
We
the
must
east.
stand together.
Gold and silver has to be brought in from those regions.
Cut them
All
asunder.
trees have to come from Lebanon,
Let
the
none
mountain,
escape.
the forest regions in the
Wide
northwest.
awake.
All stone has to be imported. So this is
When
why
I
all these
retire, I
diorite
will be a poet.
objects that you get in the old Babylonian period and earlier, the old Akkadian period, these are massively important because all this diorite is being brought in from the mountains from the east. So everything in Mesopotamia is imported.
We've proved ourselves
All they
today.
have are the
Your heart
lands
sing for
to
blood.
farm,
Come
with irrigation in the south, and then in
Duty
Hanagaba,
calls.
all the arable land
Smite
that they
them
can
to
farm.
smithereens.
And so the gathering of resources, this is why people always talk about, I got this, carnelian from such and
They
such,
will
because it's
sing
so
of
far
our
away.
triumph.
And that itself is an expression of
Fast
power
and strong.
or wealth. The fact that you even have
Fruitless
something made of
fantasy.
this is really an enigma, right? Because you have the capability to get it from there to here, and you have the wealth to do so. Whether it's
you have
organized
the
in this
contact.
Taste of a hard-won victory.
Right.
these things are
My
very precious.
destiny
This is why
unfolds.
Mesopotamia writes on clay, because literally that is the only thing it has of
True
value.
master of the arts.
But this is why we don't have stone buildings in Mesopotamia. This is why, Egypt has these massive stone structures that, the Great Pyramids that get the attention of the world. But in
want
Mesopotamia,
me?
we're like,
Well,
oh, look at
tough.
our mud brick structures
Bother
we kind of
someone else.
recreated,
I mean, listen, they're nice structures, okay? When they're not flattened, they're nice structures. And I mean,
Honor
Mesopotamia
and
has
glory.
one of the first museums, recorded museums of the world. Because who is it? Nabonidus and his daughter.
Nabonidus.
Just
Nabonidus,
Within
yeah.
the Neo-Babylonian period, the last of the Neo-Babylonian kings,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
collecting items just outside the palace, or as
Yeah,
part
we
of
say
the
we say
palace
like
of
a
Babylon. Yeah.
yeah, like a shoddy king, good curator, right? I mean, you know, probably the king life was not for him. So you know, mad respect for that. But it's also interesting for the cultural history, right? Because you want to preserve the memory and the objects of the people before, which is, you know, it's something. I mean, in Egypt there is very, very hotly contested. One of the sons, I think the firstborn, one of the first kids of Ramesses II, Khan was it, who is the high priest of Ptah. He's the first one, yeah, because there's the one who changes the name, then there's the other one. Yeah, one of let's say one in the top, the first 10 sons of Ramesses, which is early, who is a high priest. And sometimes he's called the first archaeologist because he's restoring monuments, but we don't know if he's actually restoring monuments or if he's stripping materials and then making sure that the names of the original builders of those monuments are written down. So their memory is preserved, but they're also like stripping them for stone. So some questions there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You know, in Mesopotamia, the Assyrian and Babylonian kings would write their inscriptions on these clay objects, but they would bury them under the foundations of the building they're renovating.
The foundation deposits, yes.
Preserve their memory, which was very important, you know, as you're saying. And we have, they had these curse formula at the end of a lot of these royal inscriptions saying, should someone find this inscription, if a later king finds this inscription and digs it up, may he treat it with respect and put it back in the foundation and put his own object. And we actually have where they would find these things. Later kings would actually find their predecessors' inscriptions. And I think it's one of the Neo-Babylonian kings actually says, I found an inscription of so-and-so. It might have even been Naram Sin, but I can't remember that. That seems so far back. And he says, you know, I'm putting it back in the foundation with my own inscription next to it. So this whole concept of memory, the preservation of memory, these building projects were the way these kings thought about as the means to preserve their memory. And so this is why these inscriptions always talk about, don't alter my inscription, don't change any of the contents, don't erase my name, don't destroy the inscription, always return it to the foundation, even if you find it later digging it up to renovate, because they all know these buildings have to be renovated every like 100 years or so, because mud brick, you know, unlike stone, constantly needs upkeep. And so yeah, the preservation of memory is a vastly important concept in the royal ideology of inscriptions.
Yeah, no, pharaohs were not about that. I mean, in a sense, they were with like king's list and honoring the ancestors and everything. But in the practical act, if you have a nice statue, I'm gonna put my name on that. Maybe recut the face to look like my face. It is something that is not seen as an anathema.
It would destroy the memory of that person then, right? They would erase that person's name.
Well, from their objects and buildings, but sometimes they would actually make a considered effort to destroy the memory and the name of that person. If people committed particularly heinous acts, they would also be buried in a ship and not in a proper tomb, not in a proper sarcophagus, so they would not become an Osiris. And they would be banned from the afterlife, basically, and their names would not be preserved. So we only know the names of the people who actually killed Ramesses III because we have the trials, you know, records or part of the trial records, and we may or may not have the body of one of them, which must have died a pretty terrible death in a sheepskin. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, names of pharaohs that were erased. Akhenaten, you know, whoever Menkaure was, whoever Neferuaten was. I mean, somehow, you know, Tutankhamun. Yeah, Hatshepsut for complicated reasons. I mean, I don't know. mixed feelings about that whole thing because she raised Tutmosis III. Like, I can't imagine that he hated her, and I can't imagine that she hated him. Great, I don't buy into that.
At the counter! Party! Face my wrath! Step by step!
I mean,
Strike them down! Face my wrath! Strike them down!
yeah, I kind of buy that. I mean, his son was also like a giant, you know, towering athlete, like a jock. So he was probably the right choice for, you know, for Pharaoh. He was ridiculous, a ridiculously tall man, son of a ridiculously short man. So something happened there. But yeah, no, I buy that. I'm like, you know, and even there, like, yes, we are re-raising Hatshepsut, but like the points of her obelisk are still poking out from the pylons of the temple, so it kind of looks like it's got bunny ears. It was a weird erasure. It was a very weird moment for everyone involved. But yes, no, there is, and of course, destroying someone's name is like one of the worst things that can happen. Not just to kings, though, like to everyday life Egyptians too. Which is something that they're very afraid of. Which is why they write their names like, well, if you can afford a tomb, which would already put us like in the top 1%. You would write your name on everything, and in the prayers that people would ideally recite when they pass by your tomb. You know, if you say this name, if you say my name, if you say these words, I will receive this much in the afterlife. Which, you know, they were very involved with preserving one's name, also because, I mean, if you know someone's name, you have power over them, and also you need the name to survive in the afterlife, right? Not just for cultural memory, but also for like survival of your complete being. You would need your name to survive, which is why, you know, the graphomania is also explained with that. Right? Yeah, they wrote on everything. Yes. Yeah. Because they had to. Theologically, ontologically, they had to write on everything. But you know, I will cite my favorite tomb descriptions from veteran. You know, the son of Ibana. Who writes Ahmose, son of Ibana, who writes the name of a brave man is in what he has done. Because he was a man of action. He had risen the ranks of the army. Perhaps another from, you know, being on a boat to becoming like commander on the field. You know, he fought actually in the campaigns of the Tutmozids and the ones of Ahmose and Kamose too. So he was, you know, he was a man of action, and he had a tomb in which his name is everywhere, fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
I shall bring a new era.
Oh yeah, exactly.
To the whole world.
We do love our, you know, we do love our inscriptions.
Feed them.
Let me ban. We have a bot in the chat, but that's okay.
If I can ask a question here.
But yes.
What part does geography play in the game?
What a great question.
Because I was thinking about this. You know, geography is, you can write a history of Mesopotamia based on geography, because it is one of the factors that sets the limits of kingdoms, that will set the parameters for how societies are going to interact with each other. I mean, geography is one of the key components in understanding Mesopotamia and how it develops and how its kingdoms and societies develop. So what part does geography play in the game? And also, even as a battle mechanism, I guess, when you're fighting battles, does terrain have an impact on the game? Sure.
Glory to Assyria and its people, for I am their savior. Taste Assyria's power. Move out! Submit to me! Besiege those weaklings! I want them broken!
The gods demand blood!
The world is not that bad.
We did it, despite the odds.
I shall bring a new era to the whole world. Engage the enemy.
I shall bring a new era to the whole world.
Go out there!
Song and verse.
And the generals can have bonuses to fight on
shall
certain
bring a new
terrains,
era
like
to the whole
which
world.
they can gain. Like the more experience they have, they gain traits that can give
Enough with
bonuses
your
to their
pestering.
troops. And you can also have ancillaries, which are like either objects or people, questionable I know, that give you bonuses based on terrain. They give you less
Our
attrition. They
resolve
give you
is
something of the sort.
unyielding.
Sorry, I cut you off, but continue.
A fight! Yes!
Oh, Alexander. Yeah.
Huh?
I got a male Babylonian one on one of my generals earlier this morning. Yes. Oh. I mean, it's a daughter. That's fine. That's fine. Good, good, good.
I listen. We set off now!
Unless you're playing as the Amazons, in which case all your generals are women.
A fantastic
There is-
display of bravery!
So with this game,
True
they've
master
meshed
of
it
the
together with
arts.
Total War Troy,
Stir
which is
fear
their
in them.
take on the Trojan War.
A new journey!
And you can have
finest hour.
mythical units, or you can play as the Amazons directly. So everyone's a woman in the Amazonian roster, which is interesting. It's a lot of fun, and they're like loosely based on the Scythians. So lots of lots of
calls.
trash cavalry, lots of cavalry
Burning
units,
desire.
skirmishers, archers, all sort of things. And you also can choose to have in Troy, not in this one, actual mythical units. Whereas in this one, they've done something weird because we have the names of the Homeric heroes, and like we have the heroes from the Homeric poems. in their respective, Mycenaean kingdoms. So you got Troy, there's Priam, there's Hector, there's Astyanax, there's, Thea with Achilles, and their symbol is, of course, an ant, because the Myrmidons are ants. There's Odysseus, there's all sorts of things. So it's a weird, like, if you stay on the eastern side of the map, it's like pretty historical, with some caveats. And if you go west, it's like, no, this is now the Homeric poems. Choices being made there, in terms of contemporaneity of actions. But it's a lot of fun, and sometimes you can get some whack marriages. Like when I was playing as Honey Galbat, my firstborn married Helen and Menelaus's daughter, Hermione. I was like, yeah, why not?
Okay. Yeah, of course.
Right? And I mean, her trait was remarkable beauty, and I was like, of course. I mean, she's the daughter of Helen. Like, how could she not? It was a great union. They had a lot of blonde children for some reasons. It must be the divine blood. So, but you can also have some questionable unions in the historical part. In my Ramesses campaign, I married my firstborn to one of the daughters of Ammon Messi, which is not something Ramesses III would have done, because they were, sort of rivaling for the throne, but at one point, it's a good match. They like each other, it's fine. They're respectful. It's just, do not marry 42-year-old women for dynastic reasons. Sadly. So, oh my god, it's them again, it's the pot people again.
Make the gods proud! Break them! Fear me! Go now!
I trust us.
Blades! Let fly! Room for success! Set forth!
They like the Acadian farmers. They really like their farmers. I'm like, yeah, just trash units, mass farmers, and see what they do. Give them a pike and see what they can do. Not a lot, usually.
Cavalry, ready! And a volley! By your request. Victory beckons!
No.
Not really.
But
sometimes you can also set things on fire, which is something we like to do.
Cross over there!
Especially, forests, buildings, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Go now!
It's, it's always a good idea. And some factions get, like, morale boosts if there are certain atmospheric conditions, because of their patron gods. So the Hittites would get some boost if they're fighting in a thunderstorm, because storm god, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
On the move!
It is fun. It is fun.
Your warriors are wavering.
And you can also dedicate generals to we haven't talked about the gods at all. Dang. Once we're done with a battle, we're gonna talk theology, because you can dedicate generals to certain, devote generals to certain gods. And you can choose if you only want the gods of your factions, or if you want to know everyone's gods. But then you need to find them, you need to discover their cult centers. And there are choices being made. I'm not gonna spoil a lot, but we have, we got Ninurta, we got Ashur, and we got Ishtar. But there's plenty. But Marduk is also in it, and he has the dragon, of course. Yeah. How else would he appear? Oh god, their generals. There is one face we haven't seen yet for one of their generals. Incredible.
I'm not staying here.
The fourth general.
Fade. In the iconography, he's fade. So
yeah.
Charge and attack.
Yeah. So there is. We'll show you, because there's always something to say about how the gods are represented here.
Your warriors are wavering.
Questionable. When we played with the sea people, all of our gods were Etruscan gods.
Oh wow. Okay.
I'm like, interesting. I wonder, right? Like all of them, there was no mistake. I was like, okay. There are also mods to add more gods, because naturally people want more deities. But the gods are drawn in the style of the art of the region to which they belong.
Okay. Yeah.
So Aegean gods are black figures, like Greek paintings. Egyptian gods and like the gods of West Asia are all drawn more or less in Egyptian style. And then the gods of Mesopotamia are more Mesopotamian-ish looking. Like they did, like someone did the
One of your
research,
units has
and then they
depleted
did
their ammunition.
you know.
Aim and fire!
Proud and torn!
Oh god.
Marduk has abandoned us! No! Death will not
Yes.
hit me! There's no turning this around!
Hmm.
I mean, we love it, but you know. Well. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're only the. Oh my god, the rebels. Annoying. Well, that means we're gonna have to what? We're gonna have to massacre them. But we got another child. Important. Huh.
No. It's right. Goddess of War. Well, that's the thing, right? What is Ashur the god of? He's the same.
As you should.
Yeah. I think so. I think Ninurta appears. Is it
Oh, yeah.
Ashur-Natsir-Pal II? There's a relief. There's a wall panel that has Ninurta fighting the Anzu bird, I think.
Yes, I
And
put
I
it in the
think
chat.
Ninurta is depicted in that
He's
way.
got 2 thunderbolts.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
buff. And then see the black figure for the male gods and white skin for Aphrodite, but still in black figure style, so it would be overpaint.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
No moat.
There is a great temple of Mo.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting.
That's the problem. I mean,
Hmm.
you have and the one that's also missing is like the God of War, which is Montu. Um, but it's a God of War if you want to get, or just get the Lady of Slaughter, get Sekhmet. I mean, she's a lioness, right? Get her in. I will let you know that the mod for extended pantheons actually has Sekhmet. You know. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I will crush you. I will not
The
hold
chat
back.
the chat is saying that Arcanist is perpetually annoyed at Yan being a Yuan T and Moloch being
A
there
testament
in
to
general.
Assyrian supremacy.
Yeah. Yeah, the Moloch thing is
Glory to Assyria
I don't
and
know.
its people.
I mean,
I am their savior.
I mean, we're gonna get into the Tophet, aren't we? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would assume that
You are the
Moloch
pride
and
of Assyria,
Anubis are
warriors.
there for the same reason. It's that they are names that people know
Universal king.
Yeah. Yeah.
and associate with those civilizations. Are they there for good reasons? Right. It's difficult.
I
It's difficult.
dedicate this victory
Especially
to
with
Ashur.
Moloch, which is, I mean, I'm no expert.
Master
I know
of
the
all.
vague issues with that. Also, yes, chat.
cannot
Sekhmet
escape.
is the lady of angry cat
I seek
vibes.
strong
Absolutely.
warriors.
I mean, she's a big angry kitty. And a
Because
big
for the
angry
Canaanite
cat.
gods, I mean, Atheret, isn't she the brother of
I shall bring a new era
Baal.
to the whole world.
Who's the warrior goddess of the Canaanite pantheon?
I know.
I think would be
We
useful
will march.
in this
Right.
context.
I mean, a random Resha
I shall bring a
would
new
be
era
would be nice,
to the
right?
whole
Anna.
world.
Wait, no, Atheret is the wife
Trample
of
their
El. Sorry.
spirit.
Anat.
The gods.
Yeah, and we are
Anna.
missing Anat. Yeah, which
is
would be
the sister of Baal,
Engage
who's the
the
warrior
enemy.
goddess in the Canaanite texts.
and
So I think that would have made sense here.
We
I
set
mean, in the
off
context
now.
of the game.
Over
yeah.
here.
and it's one of those gods that get adopted into Egypt, even in names, because
Taste
they're like,
Assyria's
yeah, we
power.
like this one. Yes, we'll take. Thank you. Yeah, we do need Anat.
I
Yeah,
shall bring a new
absolutely.
era to the
I don't know if
whole
she's in the
world.
mod. I'll check. But yeah, it's one of those. I don't know. Some choices are
Explore the
are
region.
sort of baffling, even like in sort of the iconography of the gods. The Aegean gods were taken from Troy, so they're like,
Bag of gold.
the ones that
bronze
fight at
blade.
Troy are there. The ones that are in the poems
I will
are
not
there.
anger me, wretch.
Or Arcanist. I don't know how to pronounce that name. Ashtart, the goddess of Syria. I hope I didn't butcher the pronunciation. If that T
Right,
with the
Ashtart.
line underneath is a Chi. Okay, good. If that's how it works, yeah. there was imminent rebellion? I don't think so, sir. We'll put people down. We can these type of games bring out the worst in people sometimes. You know, it happens. I mean, these are like Age of Mythology, Age of Empires. It's just sometimes you just need to massacre other people's armies. It happens. It happens. And sometimes they massacre you, as is probably going to happen in this case. Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Do you think we can? I mean, I trust you.
Avoid this conflict.
Assyria and Babylon, they're two locations that they have a little bit of a buffer from the upheavals that happen. And so the collapse of these societies are actually delayed by about 50 years, 60 years, 100 years, as you know, that kind of starts to spread, you know, from the Levant, you know, Egypt and Anatolia. That kind of chaos slowly spreads across. But they survived the initial
Battle positions.
upheaval of the region.
Keep them trapped.
But then as the Arameans, you know,
right
come
now.
sweeping across, as those people are
awaits.
displaced, the Arameans destabilize Assyria and Babylonia and cause, well, they don't cause its collapse, but
Clearly, we are victorious.
during a period of weakness, yeah, it helps bring about the collapse of these things.
Another year, another campaign.
But this is why we have so many historical records that continue past the collapse of the Bronze Age in you know Mesopotamia. It's because these societies
Just
actually
go
survived.
away.
You know, Tiglath-Pileser, he reigned from 1114 to
Surrender or
1076.
die.
He is one of the kings that, after this period of weakness or whatever, after Tukulti-Ninurta, it's a resurgence of Assyria, where he campaigns across the entire Near East, up into the mountains. He campaigns all the way to the Euphrates. He actually campaigns beyond the
I shall bring a
Euphrates,
new
but
era
not to
to the whole
conquer,
world.
but to make his presence
Dreams
known.
aplenty.
He says that he goes all the way to the
Hide
Mediterranean and
yourselves.
washes his weapons in the Mediterranean.
Return to daily
He
duties.
receives a monkey as a gift from Egypt.
Take enough
I mean,
supplies.
classic, right?
But it's
Stir
this
fear in them.
last kind of resurgence of Assyria
True master
before
of
the
the
state
arts.
itself finally does
to your
give in
posts.
to the Arameans that
Enough
are
with your pestering.
swarming in at this period and kind of destabilizing the region. He does fight Babylonia, of course.
I shall bring a new
Babylonia
era
in
to the
one of the
whole
wars
world.
kills two of his sons. And then so he sacks the city in a year later and fights a chariot war with them, as the texts tell us. So you know,
Smite them.
Assyria and
Smithereens.
Babylon, they do kind of survive the collapse of the Bronze Age for a little bit longer until they themselves
A
give
fight.
way to all these
Yes.
kind of destabilizing pressures that are happening across the Near East. But I will say, the seeds, since I guess we're supposed to be talking about the Middle Assyrian stuff, right? The
Assyrian might
seeds and
always wins the
formation of the state that are established in this period is what is going to be the foundation of the
king
Neo-Assyrian
without
Empire.
Gather more warriors.
The patterns of making vassals, turning them into provinces under direct governance. This is the pattern that the
future
the
belongs to
Neo-Assyrian
us.
kings use to re-solidify their claim up to the Euphrates and then spill over into the Levant and start provincializing the Levant.
I am
The
destined to rule.
difference between
Your
the
passion
thing
is
I like
quite
to say in
fierce,
class
Nina.
is the Neo-Assyrian kingdom empire is simply the Middle Assyrian kingdom on steroids.
Yes.
all of the
Yes.
patterns of occupation, of political control, they have their origins in the Middle Assyrian kingdom. And so when the Neo-Assyrian period comes along, after the collapse is over, Ashur-dan II, their inscriptions talk about, I am re-inhabiting or retaking the land that belongs to Assyria. They don't consider it conquering territories anymore. It is our land that we are reclaiming for ourselves. As the land up to the Euphrates. This land up to the Euphrates is now considered Assyria itself, rather than Old Mitanni or something else. And so they start with this perspective of everything up to the Euphrates and down to the border of Babylon is Assyria. And that's the perspective the Neo-Assyrian kingdom starts with when they start their expansion into the mountains and more north, and finally, kind of take over Babylonia in the south, and then spill over into the Levant to become an actual empire rather than just a kingdom, which is all the Middle Assyrian period is. It's really just a territorial
I have
kingdom.
carried the burden of my duty for a long
Right.
time.
Have you read the newest book on Assyria by Eckhart from Assyria?
I have not.
It begins with, in front of me ruins, behind me ruins. Very Assyrian.
Yes. No, I have not. One of my colleagues has read it, and he says it's a very good overview. It doesn't go into too much detail, so it's a good book for if you are a novice to Mesopotamian history, or not a specialist and want to know. Right. It's a good book. It's a good book for that purpose. The lay person who wants to read about Assyria. Yeah.
It's been I've been telling friends, like I'm like in several circles with like friends who are interested in history. I'm like, listen, if you want to read a book about the Neo-Assyrian, that's the book. That's the book, right? Yeah. Because if you start reading like more specialist, texts that are more aimed towards specialists, you're gonna get lost. The names and the family trees and all the claims. But if you want to learn, like, let's say the basis, that's a good book. It's interesting that like the Neo-Assyrian Empire takes its moves from the middle one with this claim that this is our ancestral land, right? It's this is the land that we've always, that our ancestors took, and that they take a model of a kingdom that works with the regional governors and this very dense administration.
Everybody has their
my students were
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for interrupting you.
No.
And
Go,
also
go.
these patterns, it gets talked about mostly in the Neo-Assyrian period, but these patterns of depopulation.
Yes.
Of taking a local population and moving them.
a fantastic
That
display of
starts under Shalmaneser I as a way to get labor for these construction projects that they're doing in the capital. So, the Neo-Assyrian kings are known for their, depopulation and exporting people to other places. But it actually starts in the Middle Assyrian period. It's the same type of pattern of control. I'm sorry, please continue.
Right, no. Well, that was my next thing, right? It's like, and if it works, if it ain't broken, you don't change it, because it's something that they work. Like every time I teach, like the Neo-Assyrian part of Dynassties, everyone's like, wow, there was a lot of bureaucracy. And like, yes, because that's how like the scary thing about the Assyrians is not just that they are fearsome in battle and then they show us these giant reliefs in which their Chad kings punch lions in the face. It's that they have a very well-oiled machine that works at a very like micromanaging level. They're moving people because they need them not to have roots, and they need the workforce, and they have all of these governors and officials and everything else controlling every part of the empire, which is how it works, and then eventually ends. But like, yes, the bureaucracy is what makes an empire. And thank goodness, because they write a lot.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see
I mean, and
comrades with vision.
deportations help keep the local population
hearts
under
sing
control
for
because you're
Come,
deporting, in mass quantities the individuals that
Soldiers,
may cause
join with
uprisings,
me.
and then you're settling Assyrians in the region.
Exactly. And
It's a highly organized state.
Yeah, no, it's really organized. And like,
This is what makes it successful. I guess
Yes.
that's what people should know. This is what
Pay
makes
attention, recruits.
the Middle Assyrian
or
Kingdom
die later.
possible, and then ultimately
They
the
have the
Neo-Assyrian
advantage.
Empire possible. It's the ability to
Report
organize
army
in such a
status.
way to control just not the agricultural resources, but the population resources. To consider people a resource.
yes.
And that's what makes it successful, where
We came out on
it's
top.
kind of failed at
Duty
this point in
awaits.
time for other regions.
Yeah, no, it's moving the people, and the moving people around at a smaller scale
Bag of
is
gold?
something that we see
Or bronze
weirdly
blade?
enough in Sicily, in pre-Roman Sicily, because when Syracuse is like the Dorian
Cut them
city,
asunder.
right? They're of Dorian kind, they're Corinthian. They want to reduce the influence of the Ionian cities of Sicily in the region. And what do? They depopulate. They conquer them, they raise the cities, and then they move people out and they move Dorian people in. And they call people from the Peloponnese into
must be
Sicily
mad
to make it
coming
more
to me.
Dorian, which is, smaller scale, but it's the same idea, right? We move in our people, right? We have our governors on these cities. So it's, is it inhuman? Yes, because
Yes,
uprooting people and moving them around is horrible.
Yeah.
But then
Everybody has
again,
their
it's something that if you have the bureaucracy and the manpower to do so, you can do it. And then in return, you get manpower to build big temples, big cities, big walls. In the
Always
case of
ready.
Syracuse, that helped a lot. So it's
marching
it's not an old trick because it's not a trick, but it's something that works.
new
It's a
journey.
model that works, right?
Yeah, and of course, as a historical touchstone, this explains the whole 10 lost tribes of Israel.
Thank you.
They're not lost.
They're
Israel was conquered in 722, and then, like everybody else, was
Resist me and you will die.
provincialized, where Samaria was turned into a provincial capital as part of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, where some of the population was deported, not all.
Are those waves?
Then Assyrians were settled there, and it just became a part of the Assyrian state, where the people then integrated themselves into the
Set
Assyrian
sail.
state. So the 10 lost tribes aren't actually lost. They became a part of the cultural fabric of Assyria.
right. They're become Assyrians.
Everybody has their duty. The future belongs to us.
Yeah. As they migrated south. Yeah.
Oh, we have the Thunder Mace of Minurta. Right. But only our king can use it. Yeah, sad. You get some really cool. So when you conquer, back to the objects, when you
finest
conquer
hour.
specific regions
We
or
shall
you hold
recruit.
specific offices, you get ancillaries that are weapons or armor or chariots that only the faction leader can use. Which is really cool, except that some of them are not compatible. So the Mitanni war chariot that our king is using cannot be used with the mace,
I see. Okay.
which is... It would be really cool. It would be damn cool, but alas, you can't. They have certain ideas about the weapons that you can and cannot use from a chariot. I'm gonna get... Oh, ouch. Okay, yes, yeah.
I do not like this.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, the one person, that's okay, that's fine. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, this is why the Euphrates was such an important river for the Assyrian mindset, because it becomes not just the geographical boundary, it becomes the ideological boundary of the
a
state,
great empire.
where
Know
it
your
is
place.
the geographical element that defines the state. So control up to the Euphrates in all periods is very important.
Yeah. Where's our... Oh, we need to put our hair in one of those... Our heir in one of those positions, but he needs to be a general, I think. Is he on the map? He's not on the map. He needs to be on the map, I think.
The battlefield awaits!
Yeah.
They will
I
sing
mean, is it
about
nepotism
triumph.
or is it just giving a position
We
to
must
someone we
stand
trust?
together.
Whoops. I mean, listen, you know,
True
he's
master
he's
of the
he's
arts.
fine. Is he married yet? Did we just marry him out? Because that's something.
The
Sounds like
battlefield
something we would do.
awaits.
Oh yeah, he has a daughter. Very nice. He has a girl. That's fine.
We won a fair victory.
No, we should
Few are like
should get a
me.
good. He needs to be on the map to be renamed. Oh, sure.
Burning
Oh
desire.
yeah, like a good
must go there.
traditional name.
Song and verse.
Unfortunately,
I am
there is
destined
a character
to
limit,
rule.
so I could
Sounds
not.
important.
I could not name one of my sons Amun Herkepe Chef. Too long.
Yeah. Tiglath-Pileser is Tukulti Apil Ashara. My
Maybe
trust
without
is
the
in the heir
dashes.
of Ashara.
Submit to me.
Nice. Oh, I do love this talking names. Raise.
Speak
So what are
now.
we? What is our goal for now? Yes, excellent. I mean, might as well.
Duty calls.
Good. Then we can deal with the other problems. Oh. I mean, we're gonna have to deal with everyone basically. This is the kind of games like, oh, one more turn, and then it's 4 a.m. and you're like, oh my god, I need to sleep. But one more turn, you know, I need to make sure that everything is working. Let's see. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and now you get descendant of, you know, first leader, We could take a convenient victory, maybe. Yeah. Well, you know. I mean, we are not necessarily sorry about that. They started it. Maybe. Maybe. I don't know who started it at this point. They sort of started it. Yeah. That's true.
Absolutely.
That's true. That's true. We don't start. We are like what's her name? Marie from the Aristocats. Oh, we never start to fight, but surely we can end it. But like with the Assyrian hand,
Duty calls.
we're like, yeah, we're
Make their homes their tombs.
we don't want to start trouble,
By
but
the way.
we kind of are trouble. It happens. And then we have a giant tech tree. Well, it's not a tech tree, it's a royal decrease, but it's a tech tree, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And bonuses in general.
True master of the arts.
Bag of gold or bronze blade?
Ooh. How many cities do they have? How large are
King
they?
of the universe at last.
Oh yeah.
This city shall burn.
History will remember me.
I don't know. Okay. Okay, well. Yeah, probably. Well, because there's the civil war
My word
in Egypt,
is
so
law
we're,
here.
so they're probably fighting it off and like conquering and doing. Ah, that's our kid. Good.
Nice.
He's.
I will crush you.
The finest hour.
Yeah, he's suitably bearded. So. There were all of our kids, like the moment they turn 16, they develop this full beard and they look like they're 40. But you know what? Well,
Right
it's good and
ideas for
everyone
dumb problems.
works out. Like nobody
gods
ever
demand
forgets
blood.
arms day, legs day, everyone's buff.
Surrender
In
or
Assyrian
die.
tradition,
Well, it reminds you of the Mari letters where Shamshi-Adad is complaining about his son Yasmak-Adu.
Ourselves to the
In one of
lake.
his complaints, he says, "Are you not a man?
Honor and
Do you not
glory."
have hair on your cheek? Therefore, be like your brother and go conquer, various cities."
be
So,
better. Right?
You got. I mean, the ancient world would have been much nicer if they had therapists back then, because the way that Shamshi-Adad
future
treats
belongs
his
to
youngest
us.
son, Yasmak-Adu, they needed a therapy session, a family therapy session. They really did.
I mean, honestly, which one is the king who has
Burning
what we
desire.
would call depression, and his healers tell him there is nothing we can do because this is not of the body but is of the mind. So I think it's an Assyrian king, like a Neo-Assyrian king.
Like Esarhaddon,
Probably.
because Esarhaddon is supposed to, yeah. Because we have a lot of extispicy text, trying to find out, what's wrong. Yeah. I think there is a text saying, it's all in your head.
Yeah.
You're actually okay, right?
Yeah, which on the one hand, yes, it is in your head, but on the other,
Because I think it's one of his diviners will have that notation in one of his texts. So I think it's Esarhaddon. Yeah.
it's probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, which should also tell us something about his mental state, right?
smite them to smithereens. Our resolve is unyielding.
Yeah, about Archaic ritual. Yeah.
Fuck.
You want me? Well, tough. Bother
Well,
someone else.
they were unsure if the bad omen in the city from far
So
away
and
applied
this.
to the core, right? Applied to the capital. So they were worried, does it apply or not?
Wide awake.
I mean, it's
Like,
one of these things. We have,
Everybody
yeah,
has
we
their
have this
duty.
massive archive
We
from
must
Nineveh
stand together.
that
We
allows
settle
us
down.
to have all these
Your
texts.
heartless cause revolts me.
So I mean, it's a question. Is this really a good perspective we have about Esarhaddon? Or is it just because we finally actually have an
future
archive where
belongs
they're
to
debating
us.
these things internally
Soldiers, attention!
between the scholars and the king? Because we don't have
Sound
this kind of an
battle horns.
archive for earlier periods or whatnot. It's the type of archive we have where it's the scholarly archive, where the internal
for march.
correspondence of the scholarly elites talking with the king. So it's a question
I am
of,
destined
is
to
this an
rule.
authentic representation of
Prepare to
Esarhaddon,
march.
or are we overblowing the situation a little bit
seek
because it's
mystical
just the
wisdom.
texts that are actually preserved that we don't have preserved for other people? I mean, that's always a question when dealing with textual archives.
Yeah, and with any
Over
king,
here.
it's like, oh, it's is this all there is to this person, or is it just that we're lacking the evidence, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there was
What
there
will
was
fate
more, and
bring?
also like which of these texts have been chosen to be preserved.
I
Which
expect a lot of the kings of the ancient world were more paranoid
oh yeah,
because one has to be in order to survive politically in this kind of world.
yeah,
And so
yeah. I
think
mean,
we'd have those kind of conversations from other kings if we had texts preserved that actually dealt with that topic. Yeah.
oh definitely, and like oh more way
would
more
advise
paranoid, way more
against it.
anxious, way more.
Yeah.
It must not have been a good life. Probably the best option would have been like being like a minor son of a king with way too many kids. Pick up a government job somewhere, retire. Live the life, be okay. One of Ramesses' many sons, Ramesses II sons, has actually the fabulous title of overseer of all the vineyards of Egypt, and it's like, yes, that is the life. That is the life. You're never going to amount to anything.
Right,
You
right.
are the son of a king and you oversee all the wine in Egypt. Perfect. Fantastic. Sign me up. Fantastic. Like, you're not even a high priest because there are no more priesthoods for all of those kids. All of your brothers got, general priest, overseer. You're like, it's okay. We'll give you the wine. You know what? I deal with that. I can deal with that.
So doesn't that mean this game? Doesn't that mean this game needs? Is it best? Is it best the god
would-
of parties and drinking?
It
I'm
would
not
need
up to my
best.
Egyptian gods, but
Oh
okay.
yeah. The dancing dude. Yes, it would need
See,
that.
every game needs a dancing, partying god.
Yes.
Just mentally survive all this warfare.
Actually, if you play as Ramesses III, you can build festival grounds for people to have
Oh.
festivals in Egypt. Actually, yeah, and
Oh, okay.
and vineyards too. So you can, so that people can get drunk. If you're Seti II, none of that. All of your proprietary buildings are military stuff because he's a brute. So they also try to give some flavor to the various leaders. So,
Yeah.
this one is a brute, this one is more schemy, this one is, oh my god, the chancellor is, so his symbol is a peacock, and he's very oriental, but like, oriental, he's one of those. It's, how much, how much orientalism would you like? Yes. But, they make choices. It's interesting. And they gave Tawazuret some fabulous gloves, which makes sense because she rides a chariot.
Yeah.
So she has incredible gloves. So it made, you know, it made some character choices. But then once the first generation dies, then you don't get the flavor anymore. All the kids are like, kind of, you know,
Face my wrath!
garden variety generals. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
I
we'll
was
deal, but
born
it's
for
sad.
this.
And they all look way too
loyal.
old. But that's fine.
I
So are these the
never
last
lose.
of these guys?
Your warriors are wavering.
This is how you die. Withdraw now. Spears.
Just have
release.
this army. So if we kill them, we kill Urartu.
Javelins.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Hati's most loyal.
Your general is
It
under
should be.
attack.
Everything else is there. Is either our vassal or
You will
ours,
fear me.
which is basically the same thing. So if we can, you know. And we have two generals that look exactly the same. Twins. Our boys. You know, they're.
Expect the praise of delivery.
Let's just say they're made with the same. How do you say, with the same mold?
Hallelujah.
Made in
Yeah.
series.
Yeah. To complete the game from beginning to end, about how long does it take a person?
Hati's most loyal. I'm not staying here.
That's for a single faction.
War to fight.
Yeah. There's 3 tiers of victory.
For my people. Without fear.
And worshipping and like various things give you victory points, like discovering new gods, building their sanctuaries like in specific cities, like specific gods have specific sanctuaries in specific cities, conquering the ancestral lands and then conquering out, fulfilling ambitions, building, you know, specific monuments. It's like, it's a lot of things, but mostly conquering.
Your
you know.
warriors are wavering.
But you can't just conquer around without taking care of the administration. It's, you know, it's.
Your
I
warriors
find
have
administration
been
more stressful than the battles, to be honest.
Really?
Because when the numbers are red, you're like, oh my god, where can I cut? Right? What can I cut to make this work? You're like, who do I kill?
Your warriors are wavering. Your warriors have been routed. Victory is within your grasp.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, there you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No. No.
I'd be curious to know how these names are generated.
Yeah. I mean, what it might be like Mitannian, like Hurrian kind of? I don't think so, but yeah.
Yeah, 3 easy victory points. There you go. Also important. Yes. Yeah. No worries. Excellent.
A fight! Yes!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Look at our king killing their king.
Always satisfying, right?
A
Yes.
testament to
They don't really know how
supremacy.
to use pointy
Glory to
weapons,
Assyria
but
and its
they use everything like it's an
For I
axe.
am their savior.
But, you know, we'll take this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'll take the campaign victory. Oh, it does the stars. Yeah.
I dedicate this victory to Ashur.
Excellent. Okay, so now, yes, now we've conquered that. Excellent. Mm-hmm. We love them.
I shall bring a new era to the whole world.
Yeah. We've been. Ooh, nice. Nice, nice, nice. Which is there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, save. Well, thanks a lot for joining us. This was incredible. It
My
was
pleasure.
I learned a lot because this is clearly not my field. So it was great, and we hope you maybe you'll pick up the game.
Yeah.
Who knows? If it's down your alley. If not, you are welcome to keep watching us. We play every Sunday morning at 9:30.
Excellent.
Thank you, chat.
All right, it was my pleasure. I enjoyed it, and I didn't have the chat set up so I could see the chat. So I hope people who were writing questions. I hope I answered whatever questions people had.
I read what the questions that were coming in, and I was answering like with some shit posting myself on the chat.
Okay.
But yeah, questions that came in, I read, and then I added some of mine because I'm also curious. Thanks a lot. Thank you,
All right.
everyone. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, with another Bronze Age expert. So see you. Enjoy the weekend.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you again.